The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 2, Jnana Yoga, The Absolute and Manifestation. Lecture delivered in London, 1896. The one question that is most difficult to grasp in understanding the Advaita philosophy, and the one question that will be asked again and again, that will always remain is how has the infinite, the absolute, becomes the finite? I will now take up this question, and in order to illustrate it, I will use a figure. Here is a absolute A, and this is the universe B. The absolute has become the universe. By this is not only meant the material world, but mental world, the spiritual world. Heavens and earths are in fact everything that exists. Mind is the name of the change, the body and body, the name of another change. Mind is the name of a change, and body the name of another change, and so on. And all these changes compose our universe. This absolute, that is A, has become the universe, that is B, by coming through time, space, and causation, that is C. This absolute A has become the universe B by coming through time, space, and causation C. This is the central idea of Advaita. Time, space, and causation are like the glass through which absolute is seen, and when it is seen on the lower side, it appears as the universe. Now we at Now we at once gather from this that in the absolute there is a neither time, space, nor causation. The idea of time cannot be there. Seeing that there is no mind, no thought, the idea of space cannot be there. Seeing that there is no external change, what you call motion and causation cannot exist where there is only one. We have to understand this and express or and impress in it in our mind that what we call causation begins after, if we may be permitted to say so, the degeneration of the absolute into the phenomena and not before. That is our will, our desire, and all these things always come after that. I think philosophy, Schopenhauer's philosophy makes a mistake in its interpretation of Vedanta. For a sake of for it seeks to it make the will everything. Schopenhauer makes the will stand in the place of the absolute will, in the place of absolute. But the absolute cannot be presented as will, for will is something changeable and phenomenal. And over the line drawn about time, space, and causation, there is no change, no motion. It is only beyond the line that external motion and internal motion, called thought, begin. There can be no will on the other side, and will therefore cannot be cause of the universe. Coming nearer, we see in our own bodies that will is not the cause of every movement. I move this chair, my will is the cause of this movement, and this will become manifested as muscular motion at the other end. But the same power that moves the chair is moving the heart, the lungs, and so on, but not through will. Given that the power is the same, it only becomes will when it rises to the plane of consciousness. And to call it will before it has risen to this plane is a misnomer. This makes a good deal of confusion in this philosophy. That is the Schopenhauer philosophy. A stone falls and we ask why. This question is possible only on the supposition that nothing happens without a cause. I request you to make this very clear in your mind. For whenever we ask why anything happens, we are taking for granted that everything that happens must have a why. That is to say, it must have been preceded by something else which acted as the cause. This precedence and succession are what we call the law of causation. It means that everything in the universe is by turn a cause and effect. It means that everything in the universe is by turn a cause and an effect. It is it is the cause of certain things which comes after it, and it is and it and is itself the effect of something else which has preceded it. This is called the law of causation, and it is necessary condition of all our thinking. We believe that every particle in the universe, we believe that every particle in the universe, whatever it be, is in relation to every other particle. There has been much discussion as to how the idea arose. In Europe, there have been intuitive philosophers who believed that it was constitutional in humanity. Other than other have believed it Others have believed it come from experience. But the question have or has never been settled. We shall see later on what the Vedant has to say about it. But first, we must have to understand this, that the very asking of the question why presupposes that everything around us has been preceded by certain things and will be succeeded by certain other things. The other belief, the other belief involved in this questioning is that nothing in the universe is interdependent, that everything is acted upon by something outside itself. Interdependence is the law of the whole universe. In asking what caused the absolute, what an error we are making. To ask this question, we have to suppose that the absolute also is bound by something and it is dependent on something. And in making this supposition, we drag the absolute down to the level of the universe. For in the absolute, there is neither time, space, or causation. It is all one. That which exists by itself alone, cannot have any cause. That which is free cannot have any cause, else it would not be free but bound. That which has relativity cannot be free. Thus, we see the very question why the infinite became the finite. It's an impossible one, for it is self contradictory. Coming for subletize Coming from subletize to the logic of our common plane to common sense, we can see this from another side. When we speak or when we seek to know how the absolute has become the relative, supposing we knew the answer, would the absolute remain the absolute? It would have become relative. What is meant by knowledge is our common sense idea. It is only something that has become limited by our mind, that we know, and when it is beyond our mind, it is not knowledge. Now, if the absolute becomes limited by the mind, it is no more absolute. It has become finite. Everything limited by the mind becomes finite. Therefore, to know the absolute is again a contradiction in term. That is why this question has never been answered. Because if it were answered, there would no more be an absolute. A God, no, it's a God, no, is no more God. A God known, is no more God. He has become finite like one of us. We cannot be known. He is always the unknowable one. But what Advait says is that God is more than knowable. This is a great fact to learn. You must not go home with the idea that God is unknowable in the sense in which agnostic put it. For instance, here is a chair. It is known to us. But what is beyond either and or whether people exist there or not is possibly unknowable. But God is neither known or nor non-knowable in this sense. But God is neither known nor non knowable in this sense. He is something still higher than known. That is what is meant by God being unknown and unknowable. The expression is not used in the sense in which it may be said that some questions are unknown and unknowable. God is more than known. This chair is known, but God is intensely more than that because in and through him, we have to know this chair itself. He is the witness, the internal witness of all knowledge. Whatever we know, we have to know, and in and through him. Whatever we know, we have to know in and through him. He is the essence of our own self. He is the essence of this ego, and this I and we cannot know anything excepting it and through that I. Therefore, you have to know everything in and through the Brahman. To know the chair, you have to know it in and through God. Thus, God is infinite, nearer to us than the chair, but yet He is infinitely higher, neither known nor unknown, but something infinitely higher than either. He is yourself. Who would like a second? Who would like a second? Who would breathe in a second? In this universe is that blessed one were not filled in. Because in and through him we breathe, in and through him we exist, not that he is standing somewhere and making my blood circulate. What is meant is that he is the essence of all this, the soul of my soul. You cannot by any possibility say you know him, it would be degrading him. You cannot get out of yourself, so you cannot know him. Knowledge is objectification. For instance, in memory, you are objectifying many things, projecting them out of yourself. All memory, all the thing which I have seen and which I know are in the mind. The picture, the impression of all these things are in the mind. And when I would try to think of them, to know them, the first act of knowledge would be to project them outside. This cannot be done with God because He is the essence of our soul. We cannot project him outside ourselves. Here is one of the profoundest passages in Vedanta. He, that is the essence of your soul. He is the truth. He is the self. Thou art that. O Shweta Ketu. O Sweta Ketu. This is what is meant by thou art there. Shweta Ketu. You cannot describe him by any other language. All attempts of language, calling him father or brother or the dearest friend, are the attempt of objectifying God, which cannot be done. He is the eternal subject of everything. I am the subject of this chair. I see the chair. So God is the eternal subject of my soul. How can you objectify him, the essence of your soul, the reality of everything? Thus, I will repeat to you once more God is neither knowable nor unknowable, but something infinite higher than either. He is one with us, and that which is one with us is neither knowable nor unknowable. As our own self, you cannot know your own self. You cannot move it out and make it an object to move at or to look at because you are that and cannot separate yourself from it. Neither is it unknowable for what is better known than yourself. It is really the center of our knowledge. In exactly the same sense, God is neither unknowable nor known, but infinitely higher than both, for He is our real self. First, we see then the question that First, we see then that the question, what caused the absolute in the contradiction in terms, and secondly we find that the idea of God in the Advaita is this oneness, and therefore we cannot objectify him, for we are always living and moving in him, whether we know it or not, whether we do is always through it. Now the question is, what are time, space and causation? Advait means non-duality. There are two but one. There are no two but one. Yet we see that here is the proportion that the absolute is manifesting itself as many. That the wheel of time, space and causation. Therefore, it seems that here are two, absolute and Maya, the sum total of time, space and causation. It seems apparently very convincing that there are two. To the Advaitis replies to this, the Advaitis replies that it cannot be called two. To have two, we must have two absolute independent existence, which cannot be caused. In the first place, time, space, and causation cannot be said to be independent existence. Time is entirely a dependent existence. It changes with every change of your mind. Sometime in dreams one imagines that one has lived several years. At other times several months were passed as 1 second. So time is entirely dependent on our state of mind. Secondly, the idea of time vanishes altogether sometimes. So with space, we cannot know that what space is. So with space, we cannot know what space is, yet it is there, indefinable, and cannot exist separate from anything else. So, with causation, the one peculiar attribute we find in time, space, and causation is that they cannot exist separately from one another. Try to think of space without color or limit or any connection with the thing around. Just abstract space. You cannot. You have to think of it as the space between two limits or between three objects. It has to be connected with some object to have an existence. So with time, you cannot have any idea of abstract time, but you have to take two events, one preceding and the other succeeding, and join two events by the idea of succession. Time depends on two events, just as space has to be related to outside objects. An idea of causation is separable from time and space. This is a peculiar thing about them, that they have no independent existence. They have no even the existence which the chair or the wall has. They are as shadows around everything which you cannot sketch. They have no real existence, yet they are not non existent, saying that through them all the things are manifesting as this universe. Thus, we see first that the combination of time, space, and causation has neither existence nor non existence. Secondly, it sometimes vanishes. To give an illustration, there is a wave on the ocean. The wave is the same as the ocean, certainly, and yet we know it is a wave and has such different from the ocean. What makes this difference? The name and the form. That is the idea in the mind and the form. Now, can we think of the wave form as something separate from the ocean? Certainly not. It is always associated with the ocean idea. If the wave subsides, the form vanishes in a moment, and yet the form was not a delusion. So long as the wave existed, the form was there, and you were bound to see the form. This is Maya. The whole of this universe, therefore, is as it were a peculiar form. The absolute is that ocean, while you and I, the sun and the stars, and everything else are various waves of that ocean. And what makes the waves different? What what makes the waves different? Only the form, and that form is time, space, and causation. All entirely depend on the wave. As soon as the wave goes, they vanish. As soon as the individual gives up this Maya, it vanishes from him and he becomes free. The whole struggle is to get rid of this clinging on the time, space, and causation, which are always obstacles in our ways. What is the theory of evolution? Are the two factors? A tremendous potential power which is trying to express itself and circumstances which are holding it down. The environment not allows it to express itself. So, in order to fight this with this environment, the power is taking new bodies again and again, and amoeba in the struggle gets another body and conquers some obstacles, then gets another body, and so on until it becomes man. Now if you carry this idea to its logical conclusion, there must come a time when that power that was in the amoeba and which evolved as a man will have conquered all the obstructions that nature can bring before it and will thus escape from all its environment. This idea, expressed in metaphysics, will take this form. There are two components in every action, the one the subject and the other the object. The one aim of life is to make the subject master of the object. For instance, I feel unhappy because a man scolded me. My struggle will be to make myself strong enough to conquer the environment so that he may scold and I shall not feel. That is how we are all trying to conquer. What is meant by morality? Making the subject strong by alluding it to the absolute so that the infinite nature ceases to have control over us. It is a logical conclusion of our philosophy that there must come a time when we shall have conquered all the environment because nature is infinite. Nature is finite. Here is another thing to learn. How do you know the nature is finite? You can only know this through metaphysics. Nature is that infinite under limitation. Therefore, it is finite. So, there must come the time when we shall have conquered all surroundings, all environments. And now, are we to conquer them? All environments. And how are we to conquer them? We cannot possibly conquer all the objective environment. We cannot. The little fish wants to fly from its enemies in the water. Now does how does it do so? But by evolving wings and becoming a bird. The fish did not change the water or air. The change was in itself. Change is always subjective. All through evolution, you find that the conquest of nature comes by change in the subject. Apply this to religion and morality, and you will find that the conquest of evil comes by the change in the subjective alone. That is how the Advait system gets its whole force on the subjective side of man. To talk of evil and misery is nonsense because they do not exist outside. If I am immune against all anger, I never feel angry. If I am if I am proof against all hatred, I will never feel hatred. This is therefore the process by which to achieve that conquest through the subjective by perfecting the subjective. I may make bold to say that only religion which agrees with and even goes a little further than modern researches both on physical and moral lines is the Advait, and that is why it appeals to modern scientists so much. They find that the old dualistic theories are not enough for them. do not satisfy their necessities. A man must have not only faith but intellectual faith too. Now, in this later part of the 19th century, such an idea as that religion coming from any other source than one's own hereditary religion must be false shows that there is still weakness left and such idea must be given up. I do not mean that such is the case in this country alone. It is in every country and nowhere more than in my own country. This Advaita was never allowed to come to the people. That first, some monks got hold of it and took it to the forest, and so it came to be called as forest philosophy. By the mercy of the Lord, the Buddha came and preached it to masses, and the whole nation became Buddhist. Look after that, when the atheist and the agnostic had destroyed the nations again, it was found out that Advaita was the only way to save India from materialism. Thus, as Advaita was twice saved India from materialism before the Buddha came, materialism had spread to a fearful extent and it was the most hideous kind, not like that of the present day, but of far worse nature. I am a materialistic in a certain sense because I believe that there is only one. That is what the materialistic want you to believe. Only we call it matter and I call it only he calls it matter and I call it God. The materialistic admits that out of this matter all hope and religion and everything have come. I say all these have come out from Brahman. But the materialism that prevailed from Buddha was the crude sort of materialism which thought eat, drink, be merry. There is no God, soul, no God, no soul, no heaven. No religion is a concoction of wickedness or wicked priest. It taught the morality that so long as you live, you must live happily. Eat though you have borrowed money for the food and never mind about repaying it. That was the old materialism, and that kind of philosophy spread so much that even today it has got a name, popular philosophy. Buddha brought the Vedanta to light, gave it to the people, and saved India. 1,000 years after his death, a similar state of things again prevailed. The mobs, the masses, the various races had been converted to Buddhism. Naturally, the teachings of Buddha became in time degenerated because most people were very ignorant. Buddhism taught no god, no ruler, no ruler of universe. So gradually the masses brought their god and devils and hobgoblins out again, and a tremendous hodgepodge was made of Buddhism in India. Again, materialism came to the fore, taking the form of license with the higher classes and superstitions with the lower. Then Shankaracharya arose and once more revived, revivified the Vedanta philosophy. He made the rationalistic philosophy. He made it a rationalistic philosophy. In the Upanishad, the arguments are often very obscure. By Buddha, the moral side of the physiology was laid stress upon, and by Shankaracharya, the intellectual side. The work he worked out, rationalized, and placed before man the wonderful coherent system of Advaita. Materialism prevails in Europe today. You may pray for the salvation of the modern skeptics, but they do not yield, they want reason. The salvation of Europe depends on the rationalistic religion and Advaita, the non duality, the oneness, the idea of the impressions or impersonal God is the only religion that can have any hold on any intellectual people. It comes whenever religion seems to disappear and irreligion seems to prevail, and that is why it has taken ground in Europe and America. I would say one thing more in connection with the philosophy. In the old Upanishads, we find sublime poetries. Their authors were poets. Plato says inspiration comes to people through poetry, and it seems as if these ancient rishis, seers of truth, are raised upon humanity to show this truth through poetry. They never preached non-philosophy. They never preached nor philosophized nor wrote. Music came out of their heart. In Buddha, we had a great universal heart and infinite patience, making religious practice and bringing it to everyone's door. In Shankaracharya, we saw tremendous intellectual power, throwing the scorching light of reason upon everything. We want today that bright sun of intellectuality joined with the heart of Buddha, the wonderful infinite heart of love and mercy. The union will give us the highest philosophy. Science and religion will meet and shake hands. Poetry and philosophy will become friends. This will be the religion of the future, and if we can work it out, we may be sure that it will be for all times and peoples. This is the one way that will prove acceptable to modern science, for it has almost come to it when the scientific teacher asserts that all things are the manifestation of one force. Does it not remind you of the God of whom you hear in the Upanishads as the one fire entering into the universe expresses itself in various forms, even so that one soul is expressing itself in every soul and at the infinite more besides? Do you not see whether science is tending? The Hindu nation proceeded through the study of mind, through metaphysics and logic. The European nation starts from the external nature, and now too they too are coming to the same results. We, the ones, the universal one, the internal soul of everything, the essence, the reality of everything, the ever free, the ever bliss, the ever existing. Through material science, we come to some oneness. Science today is telling us that all things are but the manifestation of one energy, which is the sum today of everything which exists, trend and the trend of humanity is towards freedom and not towards bondage. By why should man be moral? Because through morality in the path towards freedom and immorality leads to bondage. Because through morality is the path towards freedom and immorality lead to bondage. Another peculiarity of the Advait system is that from its very start, it is non destructive. This is another glory, the boldness to preach. Do not disturb the faith of even of those who throw ignorance when attached to themselves to lower forms of worship. That is what is say it says, do not disturb but help everyone to get higher and higher, include all humanity. This philosophy preaches a God who is sum to total. If you will see a universal religion which can apply to everyone, that religion must not be composed of only the parts, but it must always be their sum total and includes all degrees of religious development. This idea is not clearly found in any other religions. This idea is not clearly found in any other religious system. They are all part equally struggling to attend to the whole. The existence of the part of is only for this. So, from the very first, Advait had no antagonism with the various sects existed in India. There are dualistic existing today, and their number is by far large in India because dualism naturally appeals to less educated minds. It is very convenient, natural, common sense explanation of the universe. But with this dualist, Advait has no quarrels. The one thing that God is outside the universe, somewhere in the heaven, and other that He is in our own soul, and that it will be blasphemy to call him anything more distant. Any idea of separation would be terrible. He is the nearest of all of the near. There is no word in any language to express the nearest except the word oneness. With any other idea, the Advaitist is not satisfied, just as the dualist is shocked with the concept of the Advait and think it blasphemous. At the same time, the Advaitists know that this other idea must be, and so has no quarrels with the dualist, who is on the right road. From his standpoint, the dualist will have to see many. It is constitutional necessity of his standpoint. Let him have it. The Advaitists know that whatever may be his theory, he is going to the same goal as he himself. There is no different entirely from the dualist who is forced by his point to view to begin that all differencing or differing views are wrong. The dualistic all the world over natural belief in the personal God who is purely anthropomorphic, who like a great potentate in this world is pleased with some and displeased with others. He is arbitrarily pleased with some peoples or races and shower blessings upon them. Naturally, the dualistic come to the conclusion that God has favorites and he hopes to be one of them. You will find that in almost every religion is the idea. We are the favorites of our God, and only by believing as we do can you be taken into favor with Him. Some dualistic are so narrow as to insist that only the few that have been predestined to the favor of God can be saved. The rest may try ever so hard, but they cannot be accepted. Challenge you. I challenge you to show me the dualistic religion which has no more or less of this exclusiveness. And therefore, in the nature of things, dualistic religions are born to fight and quarrel with each other, and this they have ever been doing. Again, this dualistic win the popular favor by applying to the vanity of the uneducated. They like to feel that they enjoy exclusive privileges. The dualists think you cannot be moral until you have a God with a rod in his hand, ready to punish you. The unthinking masses are generally dualists, and they poor fellow have been persecuted for thousands of years in every country, and their idea of salvation is therefore freedom from the fear of punishment. I was always by the Klingerman in America. What, you have no devil in your religion? How can that be? But we find that the best and the greatest men that have been born in the world have walked with the high impersonal idea. It is the man who said, I and my Father are one, whose power has descended upon millions. For thousands of years it has worked for good, and we know that the same man, because he was non-dualist, was a merciful of to others, to the merciful masses who to the masses who would come conceive of anything higher than personal God. He said, "Pray to your Father in heaven." To others who could grasp a higher idea, he said, "I am vine, you are the branches." But to his disciples, to whom he revealed himself more fully, he proclaimed the highest truth. I and my Father are one. It was the great Buddha who never cared for the dualistic God and who has been called an atheist and materialistic, who yet was ready to give up his body for the poor goat. That man set in motion the highest moral ideas any nation can have. Whenever there is a moral code, it is a ray of light from that man. We cannot force the great heart of the world into narrow limits and keep them there, especially in this time in the history of humanity when there is a degree of intellectual development such as was never dreamed of any hundreds years ago, when a wave of scientific knowledge has arisen which nobody even 50 years ago would have dreamed of. By trying to force people into narrow limits, you degrade them into animals and unliking masses. You kill their moral life. What is now wanted is the combination of the greatest heart with the highest intellectuality, of infinite love with infinite knowledge. The Vedantist gives no other attribution of to God except these three, that He is infinite existence, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss, and He regards these three as one. Exister without knowledge and love cannot be. Existence of without knowledge and love cannot be. Knowledge without love and love without knowledge cannot be. Knowledge without love and love without knowledge cannot be. What we want is the harmony of existence, knowledge and bliss infinite. What we want is the harmony of existence, knowledge and knowledge and bliss infinite. For that is our goal. We want harmony, not one-sided development. And it is possible to have the intellect of the Shankara with the heart of the Buddha. I hope we shall all struggle to attain to that bliss combination. I shall hope I hope we shall all struggle to attain to that blessed combination.